during these days and nights. Young children must walk through snow and ice in order to get to school and return to a chilly and bitter cold home. Imam Hussein Development and Relief Foundation are determined to help. We will be providing households with coal to burn throughout the winter. $150 is all we need. $150 will be enough to provide heat and warmth for one household for the whole of winter. That's $150 for 4 months. You can donate via PayPal, bank transfer, or visit us at www.ihdrf.org to make a donation. Our Imams tell us the best of you are those who help those who are desperate. Help us spread the warmth. Thank you.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, and welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Now, this is a live show. We do take in all your questions. If you have any question you'd like to ask on any topic whatsoever, it could be in regards to law, Islamic law, in regards to banking, in regards to marriage, in regards to inheritance, in regards to wudu, salah, anything whatsoever. Send in your questions on the WhatsApp, the email address ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv, or alternatively give us a call here in the studio 0203-515-0199. Inshallah, we'll be able to discuss and answer your questions. If you are watching on the Facebook or on YouTube, put your question in the comment section, and inshallah the technical team will be able to give me your questions and we'll be able to discuss and answer them. I'm your host Mohsin Shah, and joining me is Sheikh Ali Ma'ash. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you this evening?
Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. Sheikhna, let's kick off. And if one pours water on one's face, say 10 times, with the intention of it being the first wash, would his wudu be valid?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. If the intention is to wash the first wash, even if somebody pours 3-4 times water on his face or on her face, then with that intention made, then this is counted as one wash, غسلة أولى, غسلة واحدة. So there's no issue with it.
Ahsan. Sheikhna, if one fears that if the water of wudu or ghusl is used, her or his dependents or companions will die of thirst or fall ill or face intolerable discomfort due to thirst, in such situations, can you still perform wudu or ghusl?
In such situation in which one has only water for drinking and cannot abandon this water to be used for ghusl or let's say wudu, then in this situation it becomes mandatory on this individual to keep this water for drinking only, and the hukum switches to the act of tayammum for the wudu and the ghusl.
Sheikhna, when we have amal bil ma'ruf and nahy al munkar, when we forbid the evil, this also includes political systems that we have in place today, especially in the Middle East. For example, the Islamic governments or the Islamic authorities at the time, when we had our empire and our caliphate, we didn't recognize borders and so forth, and there was no laws upon imports and exports and so forth. As Muslims today, are we to recognize and acknowledge these laws that the West have brought forward?
Well, the Holy Quran is very clear with this regard. In Surah number 5, Ayah 45, Allah states, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Whosoever does not judge by that which Allah has revealed, they are oppressors. And the oppression would be on oneself and on his community, on the people, on others. So, yes, sadly, the Muslim governments today have imported legislations and laws from the East and the West.
Yes.
And they have actually ignored and abandoned Allah's hukum, in which they now became part of the oppressors, sadly. And they're indeed oppressing their citizens and people. And that's why we see huge flock of migrants coming out of the Middle East and the Muslim countries towards the West, Europe and America. And that's because of the oppression of the Muslim, or the so-called Muslim ruler, Hakim. And because they have abandoned Islam, abandoned Ahkam al-Islam, and this is the result.
Sheikh, a question from the WhatsApp, and that is, Assalamu alaikum, is listening to the ziyarat or a dua or Quran on a video like YouTube the same benefits as reading them? Thank you very much.
Of course, there's thawab, there's a reward, but the most thawab would be when the one recites from the ziyarah itself, from the written, from the Holy Quran, for example, from the dua of the ziyarah, to recite from the Holy Quran, the verse itself, rather than just hearing that, in which the one, of course, will get also the reward.
Sheikh, another question here from the WhatsApp, quite a good one actually. I am a mukhali of Sayyid Sistani. Please, can I get a tattoo of the name of Imam Hussein on my body?
The Sayyid mentions if this was disgracing the name of the Imam alayhi salam and somehow, then it's not permissible. And the Sayyid advised that the one should avoid such act.
Fair enough. Sheikh, in case of one who works in the store, some products that are sold contain pork. Is one able to accept the money for the pork with the intention of disposing the meat? Is it still considered selling if you have a cashier and not the owner of if you are a cashier, not the owner of the business? In the opinion of the late Sayyid Sa'id Hakim, rahmatullah alayh.
The Marhum Sayyid mentions that it is not permissible to be part of the sale of this transaction, even as a cashier, because at the end of the day, you are actually selling a pork item to that individual.
Sheikh, a question from the YouTube. In accordance with Ayatollah Sistani as well, are car finance PCP deals allowed? Now, I know with Sayyid Sistani, he's quite lenient when it comes to financing, especially with properties and so forth. Maybe you'll have a bit more knowledge on this. Paying, purchasing a car and then paying it monthly, bit by bit. Sometimes there's interest on it, sometimes there's not. According to Sayyid Sistani, does he accept or not, or do we need to check with the office?
In overall, if there's a need for such transaction, the one should, of course, refer back to the marja he follows and to find out if it's allowed or not. But in overall, in such compelled situation, the one who actually needs to get, for example, mortgage, for example, for the first house, or for example, the car, there's a need of it, of course, the one can do so. But anyway, for the Sayyid, I may be referring back to his fatwa, inshallah.
Inshallah. So that we inshallah, we'll be able to answer that again on the next episode, which will be on Monday, I believe. Sheikh, is it permissible to dispose or manage the share of the Sayyids without the permission of the marja? Controversial question there.
In overall, as a precaution, the one should seek permission. I mean, you have to make sure that when it comes to the payments of humus, try to seek permission for any payments to be in the safe side.
Sheikhna, a question from the WhatsApp. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Does a bleeding woman during prayer invalidate the prayer? Meaning a wound, not a bleeding woman, a bleeding wound. Does a bleeding wound during prayer invalidate the prayer? Meaning a wound covered but bleeds during the prayer. Do I have to stop the prayer and wash the wound and start the prayer again? There's a part 2 to the question as well. Do I have to stop the prayer if the bandaged wound bleeds? Is it permissible to continue if the bandaged wound gets blood stained? Jazakallah khair. Okay, Sheikhna, let's break it into 2. Let's start with the first one. If you've got a wound and it continues to bleed, now according to the lessons I did at Hawza and so forth, you have to clean the wound and then you have to begin your salah. And if it continues to bleed, you ignore it and you just carry on. But you clean it for the next prayer again and continue as it is bleeding. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Oh, I should be sitting over there. Second part, Sheikhna. What if the wound wasn't bleeding and you start your prayer and then when you finish the prayer, you found out, okay, the wound's open and it started to bleed. Do I have to repeat that salah?
There is an exception with regards to the wounds, in which if there's a deep wound, for example, and you've got a bandage and you still have, the part of that wound bleeding, then of course that's ma'fi in the salah, as I say, because this is a situation in which you can't stop the blood from spilling, and ala kulli hal. So as long as you have cleaned the area and you use the bandage and so forth, that should be fine.
Another one from the YouTube. Is Worcestershire sauce halal? I believe it is. So normally the products that we have here in the UK will have all the ingredients on. I'm not familiar with anything haram in Worcestershire sauce, but you'd have to check the ingredients again. Maybe we'll answer that next time once we check the ingredients. But for now, I believe that it is perfectly halal, and normally they have a vegan or vegetarian sticker on it. Sheikh, if I do ghiba of a believer, as it is obligatory for me to tell them about it and ask them to forgive me, is it true that Allah will not forgive me for doing ghiba of a believer unless the believer forgives me first? What if telling that believer that I did his ghiba will make him feel bad and damage my relationship with him? Should I still tell him about it? If not, then how can I get forgiveness for that ghiba? With the opinion of His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani.
The Sayyid mentions that if somebody tries to compensate or to amend for the backbiting in which was committed against a brother or the sister, and there's no harm in seeking the forgiveness from this individual, of course, as a precaution, the Sayyid mentions that the one should seek forgiveness from this individual. There is actually a narration with regards to backbiting from Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. He narrates from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa in a long hadith. I just take this part of the hadith. He says, وَأَكْلُ لَحْمِهِ مَعْصِيَةٌ لِلَّهِ, and eating the flesh of this believer with the intention of committing disobedience. In other words, the one who backbites that believer, that individual, it is as if somebody is eating the flesh of that individual. And that is from the Holy Quran, in Surah 49, Ayah 12. أَيُحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَن يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيْتًا فَكَرِهْتُمُوهُ. Would any of you like to eat the flesh of his dead brother? You would detest it. So imagine that's how ghiba is so rejected and so sinful, that the one would be in a situation like eating the flesh of his mu'min brother,
yes,
while he is detested. So it's important that we try to avoid the ghiba as much as we can. And the ghiba is what? Backbiting is, you say something that individual doesn't like to be said about him. He's got some kind of faults or problems. He doesn't want to be known in public.
Exposed, I see.
Exactly. So it's important that for the one to follow these instructions in which we don't accumulate more sins.
Sheikh, a question from the WhatsApp from one of our viewers. During wudu, do our nails and teeth need to be clean? Now, Sheikh, the mouth being washed in wudu, that's mustahab.
Yes.
But the nails, having, sometimes you have dirt or something like that, do they need to be clean in order for your wudu to actually be complete?
What is important, there's no obstacle on your nails and fingers. That's important.
No nail polish,
no
or
paint,
things
no,
like that.
and such like.
Ahsan. Sheikhna, if an individual vows to sacrifice his sheep for the shrine of one of the ma'soom, peace be upon them, but he does not utter the nadhr, prescribed wording, is he liable to honor his pledge?
If he mentioned the word of Allah Azza wa Jal, let's say he says in the nadhr, lillahi alayya, and the nadhr was mentioned, it becomes mandatory to fulfill this nadhr, because now you have got a shar'i nadhr to fulfill. If somebody doesn't mention the name of Allah Azza wa Jal, he just says in English, let's say, inshallah, when I arrive in Karbala, I would sacrifice a sheep. There's no meaning of Allah involved. In this situation, it's not mandatory to fulfill, but as a mustahab to honor this statement that you actually go and sacrifice the sheep. But anyhow, you have to have the shar'i utterance of the nadhr, and that is lillahi alayya. That's important in nadhr.
Ahsan. We're going to go to a break now, inshallah. We'll join you after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I have a question regarding keeping pictures of
Is it
scholars at
permissible to
home.
plant trees by or
What
over
does Islam
the
establish
graves?
based on peace and
Is it permissible
non-violence?
to collect donations for charity projects from
Is it permitted
individuals?
to consume canned food imported from non-Muslim
Is there an
countries?
issue for men looking at non-Muslim women?
To have your questions answered live, call in on +44 2035 150199 or WhatsApp us on +44 7415 092155. Alternatively, you can also email us on Ahkam SOS at imamhussein.tv.
Yes, if you have any question you'd like to ask, please send it in via the WhatsApp, the email address, Ahkam SOS at imamhussein.tv. Give us a call, 0203 515 0199. If you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on Facebook Live, put your questions in the comment section. Inshallah, the technical team will be able to send them to me, and me and the Sheikh will be able to discuss and answer all of your questions. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Salamun alaikum.
Sheikhna, we've got a question here, I think it's from the WhatsApp. What is the process of istibra? Now, Sheikhna, istibra is a way to clean yourself, and I think it begins with the pelvis, where you press 3 times, and then the shaft you'll press and squeeze 3 times, and then also the tip 3 times. And I believe it's to remove the leftover urine that is when urinating. That's especially with the men.
Exactly. Yes.
Ahsant. Sheikhna, question here. I am running okay, here we go. What is the ruling for swearing an oath using the name of other than Allah, such as using the name of an imam or a scholar or a respected religious personality?
The qasam is not valid except on Allah's name and His names only. So you use the word of Allah, wallahi billahi tallahi. Otherwise, it's not accepted. I mean, you have to use the proper shari'i qasam, so it can be taken. And if you disobey this qasam, then of course you have to pay kafara, and that's you have to pay 10 faqir. You have to feed them 10 faqir.
Sheikhna, salam. This is from YouTube, by the way. We remove sadaqah of £1 every day. I guess they pay sadaqah £1 a day, and at the end of the month, I open the sadaqah tin, count the amount. Can we replace it with a higher donation of notes and use the coins? Okay, so someone's putting in £1 a month. This is on YouTube, by the way. They're putting £1 a month in the tin. There's £30, £31 at the end of the month. Maybe they want to use the coins or so forth. Can they use £35, £40 cash instead and donate that to sadaqah and take the coins? Is that okay? Is that acceptable?
Yes, they can.
Ahsant. Okay. Sheikhna, I just need to grab this question. I am running a store and I have non-Muslim customers who want me to sell them alcoholic drinks. Can a Muslim buy and sell intoxicant alcohol to non-Muslims? With the opinion of His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani. Sheikh, we've discussed alcohol many times, pork as well. You're not allowed to buy, you're not allowed to sell, you're not allowed to handle, and you're not even allowed to deliver. In this situation, does Sayyid Sistani, the Eminence, does he disagree with that?
No, indeed, he would say it is not permissible to buy or sell alcohol. It's not allowed.
Sheikh, I've got a question from the WhatsApp. Assalamu alaikum. If a female has missed her fast during Ramadan due to menses, but has recently started to make them up as she has gotten closer to Deen the last 5-6 years, does she need to make up the fast from the age of when she was baligh, or can she do istighfar? The total fast are 97 days to make up.
Are they because she was a revert or a convert?
No, it doesn't say that. It says that she that's a really good question, actually. Whoever sent that question on the WhatsApp, is the female sister, is she a revert or was she born a Muslim? Let's say she was born a Muslim. What is the answer for that one?
We have to see initially if she's a revert or a convert.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Ahsant, we'll come back to that question. Sheikhna, is it okay for women to wear perfume?
According to Ayatollah Sistani, he would mention that she shouldn't wear perfume, especially when she is in public and there are men beside her, for example. I mean, let's say on the tube, on the bus, for example, in the market, and it becomes forbidden or not permissible if that causes, seduces, for example, an individual, or causes arousals and so forth. Then it becomes forbidden.
Okay, fair enough. Sheikhna, can I make dua and pray for someone to be guided because I believe they are sinning? Or is that a sign of arrogance, and should I just say instead, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all?
Yes, you can pray for them, for the guidance. Allah states in the Holy Quran, in Surah 14, Ayah 41, Our Lord, forgive me and my parents and the believers on the day the reckoning takes place. So you can ask for Allah's maghfirah for yourself and your parents and the mu'mineen around you. And we say in every salah, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. We ask Allah for the right path every salah. So we are constantly asking Allah to keep us on the right path, because at any second we could, God forbid, deviate for any reason. So we ask Allah constantly, every day, every salah, to stay on the right path.
Ahsan. Sheikhna, from the WhatsApp they've replied, the sister who has qada fasts was born a Muslim. She wasn't practicing, now she's practicing. She's got 97 days of qada fast due to menses and so forth. Can she do istighfar, or should she fast those?
There is a details with this regard, because if, let's say, if she is in somehow insisted on rejecting the ahkam Allah Azza wa Jal, so intentionally not to pray, intentionally not to fast, for example, or she is jahil, for example, with the ahkam. Inshallah, we'll refer back to this question,
so there's conditions and so forth.
Inshallah, yeah. To the ahkam, inshallah. So we'll answer inshallah next week.
Next week on Monday's episode, inshallah, we'll answer this specifically, because there's a lot of details to do with why the fast wasn't done and so forth, and if the punishment, not the punishment, but the fine, the kafara applies or not. Sheikhna, what is the Sharia viewpoint with regards to setting up charitable institutions?
Of course, it's mustahab for the individuals to set up, let's say, for homeless individuals, accommodation, for the orphanage, for example, maternity centers, for example, hospitals for those who are unable to pay for the cost of the hospitals and treatments. Of course, these are mustahab acts in which the one should encourage the community to help those who are unable to pay for the cost of their treatments or for the cost of their daily allowance, living allowance. That one can participate and help those, especially those who are in the Middle East, deprived countries, war zones, for example, migrants in which are unable to feed themselves or their families. So yes, if everyone can participate, that would be, of course, rewardable.
Shaykh, does making wudu before sleep have any benefit?
Of course. There is a hadith in which from Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam that he says if the one sleeps with the wudu, his bed becomes a masjid. In other words, you are going to be in some kind of ibadah when you have the wudu and you go to bed at night, sleep. So encouraged for the one, mustahab for the one to be in tahara and purity at all time. And the wudu, of course, brings barakah, brings blessings, brings rizq, if the one is always with the state of wudu and purity.
Shaykh, I've got a question here from the YouTube. I'm not sure if I'm saying it properly, but inshallah you'll be able to understand better than I. Salam, I got my kitab without my father allowing it to avoid being in a haram relationship. Is the kitab valid? I really want to listen to my parents, but they are not taking things serious.
Does she mean, or he mean that aqd?
I'm assuming it is an aqd. I don't know if it's a male or a female. If it's a male, the male doesn't need permission from the father anyway in order to get the aqd.
Virgin. We need
the female. Okay, so if the female is a virgin, she needs the father's permission,
yes.
And if not, then she doesn't require it. Ahsant. Sheikh, I think we're going to go to the Shia Plus video, inshallah. Let's see what Ahkam issue we can resolve today, inshallah.
نويت نصلي صلاة العشاء 4 ركع قربة الله تعالى. الله أكبر. Oh no! I forgot to take off my headphones before starting salah. What do I do?
Sheikhna, young Yasser there, listening to some Latimiyat. In prayer, he's left his headphones in. What should he do in this situation?
Having the headphones on his ears, there should be no objection with that. But if that causes distraction in somehow, and long pauses, and changing the posture of salah, of course, if he is out of salah, of the posture of the salah, then the salah would be void and batil. But just to have that headphone, there's no issue with it.
Ahsant. Sheikhna, another question here. What is the ruling on an autopsy of the deceased Muslim? Sheikhna, really interesting question here, because if it was a murder case, an autopsy is required to see how the victim died, and whether they were poisoned or whether it was a natural death or so forth, and they need a professional opinion. Also, we know that when someone is deceased, the body is sacred, and you disturb the sanctity by cutting or so forth and doing an autopsy. So Islamically speaking, are we allowed to do an autopsy, especially when it comes to investigations and so forth?
The best thing is to ask the permission from the marja, from the alim, to do so, to explain the situation, how urgent is and important is this process, if it's required or not. So they have to ask permission. That's the best way.
Ahsant. Sheikhna, what is the Sharia viewpoint with regards to, we've answered that one. If someone who is responsible for his family's expenses but does not pay for the expenses of his family, or he does not spend enough for the essential needs despite the fact that he's well off, is it permissible for the charity fund to give help to his family?
If the family is really in need of it, there's no harm. The one can pay them, because at the end of the day, the husband is not paying them, for example, for any reason. So if the family is in need of it, then of course one can give so.
Sheikhna, the ingredients of some of the detergents and soaps included fat derived from pigs or meta, i.e. an animal not slaughtered according to the Sharia, but this is after transformation into something else, so istihala. Would this transformation render the intrinsically najis thing tahir? Good question, Sheikhna. We remember reading from the late Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi, rahmatullah alayh, in his Risala Amaliyah in regards to gelatin, where they discussed istihala, but they said that you have to first prove that istihala has taken place in order for something like pork gelatin to be considered tahir, and so forth. So here again, whether it's a meta, whether it's swine and pork, used in soaps and used in shampoos and so forth, if istihara takes place, is this allowed to be used?
Yes, if the transformation of istihal has been taken place as commonly accepted, then of course this item would be rendered tahir anymore. You don't call it anymore animal's fat, for example. It's chemically something else, transformed into something else. In this case, it becomes tahir and pure to be used.
Shaykh, a question from the WhatsApp. Is it permissible for a lady to go out of her house to run some errands with wearing perfume, with the fragrance of her perfume reaching non-mahram men?
I think we just answered recently that Ayatollah Sistani mentions that she shouldn't do so, and if that is the case in which reaching non-mahram man and that causes arousal or causes seducing, then of course it's forbidden, not allowed.
Sheikh, another question from the WhatsApp. I think we've answered this one as well in previous episodes. Is it normal these days, or it is normal these days, for a woman to put on mascara and makeup, even a little for beauty, and then go out in front of people in the market and streets? What is the ruling on such?
It's a beauty, it's forbidden. She's not allowed to show her beauty except to those who she have links to, in relatives or husband and kids.
Well, I've got more and more questions coming in from the WhatsApp, alhamdulillah. What about practicing coitus interrupting during intercourse? That's too vague, I'm afraid. I don't know what you're referring to there. Okay, here we go. There's a part 2 in here. And still, the question's a bit too vague there, whoever's answered this. So, if I think it's to do with. Hold on, there's more coming. Okay, here we are. All right, Sheikhna, question from the WhatsApp. Basically, if you are having marital relations with your spouse and so forth, and you stop before ejaculation takes place, I'm assuming the brother's asking, do they have to perform ghusl or not?
Just the penetration to the with the partner, that penetration causes ghusl wajib.
Okay.
Even without ejaculation.
I see. Okay. So just the penetration itself. I see. Sheikhna, assalamu alaikum. What is the ruling? This is from WhatsApp. What is the ruling on the use of IUD and pills by a woman to prevent pregnancy? Contraception. Females using contraception pills and so forth, Islamically speaking, there are health considerations and you should see a doctor if you are to take any form of contraception. Islamically speaking though, the Sharia, does it allow, is it permissible or not?
Short term is allowed, but not the long term. They can't disable it at all.
Ahsant. Let's go back to the other questions. Right, Sheikhna, is it permissible for a woman to work in places mixed with men, such as banks, companies and others, while maintaining her hijab and modesty, with the opinion of His Eminence Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq Rouhani?
The Sayyid mentions there's no objection for a Muslim woman to work in such places, mixed places, but by preserving and observing the Sharia criteria with regards to the hijab, for example, modesty, hijab, no makeup, for example, no strong perfume in which, as I've said, attracting the opposite gender in somehow. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if there's no issues with this regard, then that's fine.
Question from the WhatsApp. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. You said that you just said that you allow contraception for the females. What about the males? Are they allowed to use condoms for intercourse?
Same thing. What is important that you do not disable the womb from pregnancy permanently. Short term, that's fine, but permanently by operation or by an injection or by a pill in which it would stop the pregnancy permanently, that's not allowed.
I see. Sheikhna, is it imperative to prevent non-Muslims, people of the book or others from entering the mosque? And what is the ruling if this is for the purpose of learning about Islam and perhaps accepting Islam?
Of course, the initial hukum and rule that it is obligatory to avoid those who are not Muslims to come into the mosques, unless there is a more important matter, as you just said, guiding them and so forth, and that is allowed in this situation.
Hassan. Sheikh, now we've got some more questions coming in. This one's from WhatsApp. Is it permissible to receive your salary via cash in hand instead of your bank to avoid paying tax?
This is something you have to refer back to the marja. In overall, Pakistan would not accept deceiving the government or cheating the government. So it's very strict with this regard.
I see. Sheikh, another question here from the WhatsApp, and that is, we go to a swimming pool on weekends and they have a special dye in the swimming pool where if someone urinates, the water turns purple. Is that purple water najis? Thank you. Sheikhna, swimming pool, as you know, very, very big. Could consider it as, if my Arabic is correct, kur water, where the color or the smell or the taste has to change for it to be rendered najis. Here, they've put an ingredient in that reacts with urine to turn it purple and so forth. So, that part of the pool or that purple, is that najis or not?
I mean, we have to see if, again, that we have the istihal or transformation. Did that chemical transformed this liquid to something else? That's the first question. Number two, if that, of course, the pond water or the swimming pool, the pool water is kur, in which it purifies. So
Yes.
whatever najasa falls inside it, it will keep the water tahir and pure, unless, as you mentioned, the taste changes or the color changes or the smell changes.
I see.
So it remains tahir. But that particular area, of course, if it's najasa and you touch it, it's najis.
I see.
If it's urine or
Oh,
feces
yeah.
in somehow.
Fair enough. Sheikh, I've got some more questions here from the we have one from the YouTube. Assalamu alaikum. I know the last thing we do in wudu is wipe our feet. Can we touch the Quran after that, or do we have to wash our hands with soap after wiping our feet to be able to touch the Quran? So when you perform the mas'ah, because you've touched your feet, should you wash your hands again and then go forward the Quran, or after doing mas'ah on your feet you can go straight to the Quran?
By the time you end the wudu, you're allowed to touch the Quran and pray and so on.
Oh, Ahsan. Sheikh, now what is the ruling on copying software, computer software, movies, audio CDs, and such like, which bear the word all rights reserved or copyright?
These rights are respected. You have to basically abide with the rules of the copyright.
I see. Got a comment here coming in. Assalamu alaikum. I've been watching you guys on the TikTok, and one of the comments was saying that where did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam pray with his open hands? Can you please explain? Thank you so much. Sheikhna, we've discussed before, especially on the TikTok as well, about folding your arms and opening your arms and so forth. Obviously, people will argue that Rasulullah prayed with his arms folded. Some would argue that no, he prayed with his arms by his side. And a lot of people quote one of the Sunni school of thought, Imam Malik, who encourages people to pray with his hands by their sides and so forth. So, Sheikhna, coming from a Sharia fiqh perspective, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how did he pray?
The hadith is clear that the Holy Prophet ﷺ said, "Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli." Pray the way in which I prayed, and that was the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, to pray, and his hands are by his sides or straight. Even in the time of Abu Bakr and sometimes of Umar as well, they used to pray, and their hands are by their sides and not folded until Umar conquered Iran, took over Iran, and Iranian war prisoners were brought.
Yes.
And they stood in front of him, folded hand. So he thought of bringing this into the salah because that's a sign of respect towards the kings. So this was an invention from Umar ibn Khattab that he brought.
He introduced it into the religion.
Exactly in the salah. And we don't follow Umar, we follow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he prayed his hands by his side. So they have to prove it. How could they bring this in salah in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not pray in this way? And even Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, Imam Ali alayhi salam, Hassan Hussein salamu alayhim. So where did they brought this hukum? And till today they still follow the sunnah of Umar and not sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi
wasallam. Thank you, Sheikhna. What question from WhatsApp? What can we do, or what can one do if a woman was accidentally inseminated by other men's sperm, which they are not mahram to the woman through IVF? Oh, very interesting question there, Sheikhna. Artificial insemination. I know you're aware of the concept and the process. Taking an egg, taking a sperm, infuse them, fertilize them, and put it back into the female host. What if they put the wrong sperm in? What happens in this situation? Are we to abort the baby? Are we to actually allow pregnancy to take place? Who's responsible for the child? And so forth. Can you shed a little bit of light, please, Sheikhna?
We have something called, if you mean by the mistake which was performed in terms of
the laboratory or something,
exactly, we have what is known as shubha, awlad shubha, the sons in which they were ala kulli hal mistakenly been in pregnancy. Yes, let's say somebody comes to his wife and suddenly she's not his wife, somebody else's wife or somebody else's woman, and so forth. So the awlad would be shubha in this case. Shubha means they're not awlad zina, but awlad shubha, which means they're between ala kulli hal. Shubha means something that went wrong. It wasn't the awlad of zina. So Yeah, there's just a discussion with this regard.
Ahsan. Inshallah, we'll do some more research on it and then answer it again on Monday's episode, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Can I use cracked apps where someone has provided a way around from paying for the software and using it for free, cracking it? Okay, Sheikh, now cracking means when you download the software and it will ask you for your receipt or like your username or something to prove that you purchased it. And what they do is they download what they call a cracked file, which lets them overgo that step, that security step and so forth, so they can download the software for free. Is this Islamically acceptable or not?
If the software is original and has a copyright, then one cannot do such, because that CD or the software has a copyright. Original CD, you cannot actually break it and use it and copy it to others.
Ahsan.
You have to respect the copyright.
Shaykh, a final question is coming from the YouTube. Assalamu alaikum. What about the sterilization for women in form of an operation where the woman doesn't want any more children, and what if her health would be affected by another pregnancy? Sterilization of a woman meaning that she cannot no longer give birth. Shaykh, we've discussed before as well, taking certain powers away, for example, the skill and power to actually give birth, taking that away with on purpose and intentionally, it's totally forbidden. But if this lady doesn't want to have any more children, and if she was to get pregnant, it would have serious health effects on her, can she continue with that process of sterilization?
I mean, they have to explain the situation to the marja or to the rep of the marja to see if they can go through with this process. Otherwise, I mean, it's not allowed, but they have to.
Sheikh, thank you so much for all of your efforts. And thank you to all the viewers for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. If we didn't answer your question, we do apologize. We will put them and add them into next week's questions, inshallah, and answer them. We'll be back on Monday. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, please send them in via the WhatsApp, the email address, Facebook Live, YouTube in the comment section, or give us a call 0203 515 0199. We look forward to all your questions, and inshallah we'll be discussing them on next episode, Monday 6:30 here on Imam Hussein TV 3. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Gather queries of your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Whilst this winter many of you will be enjoying the festive season, Afghanistan is going through a crisis. Every winter the weather will reach temperatures as low as -18 degrees Celsius. With little finances and homes not adequate enough to keep the heat in, many families struggle during this season. The elderly are vulnerable and physically challenged to fight the cold during these days and nights. Young children must walk through snow and ice in order to get to school and return to a chilly and bitter cold home. Imam Hussein Development and Relief Foundation are determined to help. We will be providing households with coal to burn throughout the winter. $150 is all we need. $150 will be enough to provide heat and warmth for one household for the whole of winter. That's $150 for 4 months. You can donate via PayPal, bank transfer, or visit us at www.ihdrf.org to make a donation. Our Imams tell us the best of you are those who help those who are desperate. Help us spread the warmth. Thank you.
When a person cries for Imam al-Hussein, this tear that comes out of the eye is an expression of the love and the mahabba and the mawadda for Imam al-Hussein, which is in the heart. Therefore, the tear is an expression